All right, at this time, I would like to call to order the Hardin County Board of Education meeting. And first of all, if you'll join me, we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Dawn, you got the board commitments?
I can do it.
All right.
To improve our effectiveness, the Hardin County Board of Education commits to keep children first, listen, be prepared, be professional, demonstrate financial stewardship, represent the entire district and support district goals, and support board decisions.
All right, thank you. Focus on academics, and Greg says we're good to pass on through that tonight, so we tried to choose one of the three to speak, and we thought maybe we should just go ahead and pass over them.
Good choice.
Okay, focus on academics, and
No visitors.
nothing there. Recognition of visitors. I signed up to speak. Okay, thank you. All right, we're moving right along. Construction updates. Sherman Carter and Kenny's here.
All right, I don't have anything new to put in your hands tonight. We continue to verify the punch list as the contractor works those off. We did have a meeting this morning. Well, we had a meeting 2 weeks ago and then again this morning. And one of the things that we came to a conclusion about, you know, we've had some issues with the quality of the flooring, the stain. We've talked about that. Contractor has agreed to completely redo the foyer, and they're going to do that not tomorrow, but starting next Friday. And they need about probably, we hope to have it done and back for Monday morning, but if not, John said they could switch entrances and give them an extra day because they need to have time to fix that and then let it cure, and then we'll take a look at it again. And there's other areas of the building that need some correction work too, and they want to bring their crew in and try to do all of that. So, you know, we'll take a look at it again as soon as they finish it together and see if it's acceptable. For those of you that weren't here when we did EC3, Mike and Charlie and Kay, if you remember, there were some areas of the building where they had to redo it not once but twice before we would accept it. So we'll stay on top of it. I just keep telling myself, you know, the good news is this kind of floor never needs waxing, and, you know, down the road we'll all be happy we have it. But getting it to look right, you know, it certainly has been problematic. But we'll take a hard look at that, and hopefully this next round of corrective work they do will look good. I do want to mention there is one area of the punch list that we won't be able to verify, and that's the exterior site work. You know, they got pretty well done, but not enough to where we can sign off on anything. Obviously, you know, finishing in November, I don't even want to mention grass, but there are some areas. Our folks, our civil engineer and landscape architect came down in December, really couldn't do a final punch, so they just did a kind of a work report for them to work off of, because there's some areas that are holding water, you know, just some things like that that we really won't be able to address until weather breaks. So just want to make everyone aware of that. We're making sure that they keep their silt fences in place, but there'll be, you know, because of the weather this time of year, there's going to be some erosion that they're going to have to do some correction on. And, you know, we'll just stay on top of that as it develops. But that is one area that we won't sign off on and release, you know, because we just can't do that until they have a chance to finish it. The other thing that if you go out there, and I hate to keep, you know, at this point, the idea is to find the things that are wrong, right? There's a lot of things nice about the building, but, you know, it's our job now to make sure that when we turn it over and say the contractor's finished, that it's done, you know, to the quality that we expect. So if you go out in front, one side of the canopy it's a painted structure. It's painted white underneath. One side looks great, the other side, the paint's peeling off. So again, they can't correct that until the temperature warms up. And there was a combination of, they really just, that side of the canopy, the weather got too cold on them when they tried to paint it and it didn't stick. So I'm just pointing out a couple things that are kind of obvious, as we go through. But other than that, they're working on just, we're down to a lot of small items now, but nevertheless, they're important items. So we'll just keep sending our reps out there to verify as they go that it's been done correctly. And next month, I hope to have a visual report. I hope to take some pictures of some of the areas as they complete them that are really good and acceptable. So we'll just stay on top of it. But anyone have any questions? I know Kay, you were out there. Maybe more of you were, but I only saw Kay when we were leaving. So
Yeah, we had a.
I know you. I thought
board
probably
meeting
I
out
just
there.
missed everybody else.
Let me ask this before I forget it, because I'm about to forget. I can't remember. The stained concrete, are other districts using that? Mm-hmm. Are they having the same problems we are?
Yeah. Yeah, it really,
Is it just not perfected yet, or?
it really isn't, and a lot of it depends on a lot of variables, but what we're finding out is if we have a really good concrete floor to start with, it turns out much better. The unfortunate thing is you can't really tell, how good of a floor you got till they try to put that stain on there, and then every imperfection just really shows up. But yes, we're seeing it in Spencer County, opening a new school, Taylorsville Elementary, they had it. Irvington has it. Hardinsburg Elementary has it. All the schools in Warren County, that's all they do. It's the same sort of issues, though. It's just not a perfected science, and you see every imperfection in the floor. But some of the issues that we have at Cecilia Valley are just, they're beyond what, we would expect to see.
If you didn't put the stain on it, if you just sealed regular concrete, would it be better? Would that be better? Is it the stain that's the problem, or the concrete itself?
It's, if you just sealed the concrete, you probably would see more problems because they're not going to cover that raw floor up during construction. So any bit of mud, anything that was tracked in is going to show up. At least with this method, they actually grind the floor. But again, it's a stain that you see through, so it's not like you paint the surface and it's a solid thing. It is an economical floor. That's one of the benefits of it. Is there's a lot more costly floors that go in, and then this, it's so easy to maintain. So there's some, obviously some pros and cons to it. But yes, to answer your question, it's being done in a lot of places for that reason. So.
It looks like cleaning before they do that is an issue. Some of the corners, and I know the troweling around the edges is an issue, but some of those corners in certain places, looks like they just left the dirt in the corners.
Yeah, and what happens, Mike, is that they have a machine, and they can machine grind and clean, but it can only go about that close to the wall, and then it turns into hand sanding. And I think you're exactly right. I think there's some areas where, either if the concrete was rougher there, then it wouldn't be as smooth, and it doesn't take stain as well when they switch. And we went over to EC3 today with the contractor and the flooring, the stain subcontractor, just to show them, what we expected. And so while there are some imperfections there too, we got it to a point where, it looked good. But we were battling some of the same issues there initially. Now, one of the things that we didn't have at EC3 that we pointed out is, there's a couple places where their bond breaker pulled away from the floor and there was a gap. And when they filled that was filled in with a different concrete, and it doesn't match at all. So, there's that issue. So, we showed them what we expected. So we'll see what happens here next weekend if they can get it to where we want it.
Well, I think the design of the building is beautiful.
Well, thank you. I think so too.
it's the prettiest school we've built in a long time.
Well, and we talked to Joe today too. One of the things we want to do is start monitoring the energy use of the building. Because if you remember, one of the things I always said was this was going to be, you know, a net zero ready building, which means we were going to get it down to where, you know, it was about a 25% of normal building in its energy use. We want to monitor that. Probably not a real good time to start monitoring it in January of -10 below zero, but nevertheless, but we're gonna do that and work with Joe and his folks to make sure that as we go through this first year of operation, that the building operates as efficiently as it was designed to. So it can be a real, you know, cost savings for y'all's district when in
Well,
utility
all the
bills.
light in that building really is beautiful. It's, you know, those big windows and the clear story, which I think is marvelous addition to it. And I just really love the building.
Well, good.
We can get all these issues taken care of.
We're gonna get them taken care of. They're frustrating for you all, they're frustrating for us, but just like everything else, we stay with it till they get it right. Did you see the gate? The gate?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It's not finished painted, but it is installed, and I think that
What is it
makes
they're
it
wanting to put in there? A slide and a... It's Harry Potter. They're wanting to do something with Harry Potter.
It's got a bit of character, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. It's from the Ron Clark Academy. They have a slide.
Oh, do they?
Yes,
Oh,
and they do.
okay.
If we can find the right grant for it.
Okay. Maybe we can get somebody to donate it. How much would it cost?
I don't know, I'll have to research. It'd have to be a pretty long slide all the way around.
I think we better move on.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ken. All right, Rob with JRA.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, that sounds like
That would be my son, so excuse me for that.
R2D2.
Yes,
Is he your father?
yes. He's an avid Star Wars fan,
Oh.
so. Well, good evening. I'm going to sound an awful lot like Kenny tonight, but I am happy to report, we actually met with our contractor on the John Hardin minor sports project today. Probably represented really our last formal meeting, also completed our punch list task for the project as well. All of our inspections are complete, our certificate of occupancy is complete. The buildings are ready to have the communications equipment dropped in by Hardin County. I can attest that the pager system in the buildings work because there was an announcement made from the high school that rung in the track building. So long story short, I understand that spring sports start February 15th. So all of the buildings, yeah, if everybody thinks spring. But all of the buildings should be ready for operation for spring sports. That is to say, similar to Kenny, we have a few items that are weather dependent that are going to need to, we just need a little bit better effort from Mother Nature to give us some warm days. So there's some asphalt patching where we ran the new utility lines. There's some painting in the media towers that needs to be completed. We purposefully have asked them not to do that just because, frankly, if we try to paint them now, it'll just create a mess. But the operation of the building, the usage of the buildings, they're pretty much ready to go. So they're going to be taking the next month to complete the sort of the phase from substantial completion to final completion. So the contractor does have a month in their contract just to get everything perfected, the minor little punch list items, the touch-up paint. I tell contractors all the time, if I walk behind them with a paintbrush and a caulk gun and a cleaning rag, I could do most of the punch list myself. So we're kind of down to those types of items, working things off. But somebody made the comment earlier today, I think it was this evening, that the buildings kind of look like they've always been there. And I think that's really kind of what we were shooting for on that one, that it matched everything else that was on the campus. And so, yeah, they're ready to go. So think spring. Just in terms of action items, I do not have anything for tonight's agenda on the project. I did remind the contractor that there's some to-do items for them on the BG4, just inspection dates and things like that. So I'm hopeful at the next board meeting we'll have the BG4 ready to go as well. Hopefully the final pay app, and try to get these things closed out. Assuming if there are some retainage items that we have to deal with, we'll pull those out of the last pay app and accordingly. at 200% of their value. But we're drawing the project to a close at this point. So, any questions from the board?
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you. Okay. Number 8 is consideration of the consent agenda. And we had a noon meeting and a few things we talked about. One of them that probably is maybe more of an issue than some of the others have been the approval of a proposal from Brandenburg Telecom for a 10-year service contract for fiber optic, and that'll begin July of 2018. Originally, we had about a 10-year contract, I think, with Windstream, and I talked with Mr. Tabb today, and it's going to be quite a bit of savings to switch over to Brandenburg, so that it's on there, and anytime we can save some money and get quality service, that's what we're looking for. And I think things hadn't been quite as good as we thought they might have been, and so we're going to move on. That's one of the things that has to be done occasionally. And, has anyone got any questions or clarifications on anything else there that we talked about?
Did any of you all understand this bid?
Which one?
The fiber optic bid?
Did we understand it? The bottom number was, or the end number was better than Windstream's. The service, like you want to.
Yeah, we took a lot of price being the biggest factor.
Yeah.
Come on. Most importantly, Ms. Sharon, Leif Tab and Steve Boone understood
They
this
understand it, well, that's
completely.
what's important.
So, just,
We had a rubric for this, for the bids that came in, and price was our biggest factor, but we also took into account, service provided with the vendors, previous experience with vendors. And when we take all those things into account, that Brandenburg was the best option for us.
What's the difference between dark fiber and, is that light
Lit,
fiber?
yeah.
Lit fiber?
So with dark fiber, we can put the lasers on the end of the fiber at the speed that we need. And with the lit fiber, the provider does that, and we would have to pay different amounts
Okay.
for how fast we wanted that speed to be. So with this, we get more control, and we can determine how we want to do it, and it's a cost savings to us
Okay.
when we do that.
I have no more questions.
They, some of those things get pretty technical, and
I think so.
they're,
I'm glad you understand it.
I just barely have learned to turn my phone on and off, so we're doing
I
good.
got a new phone for Christmas and it's driving me crazy.
All right, thank you, lady.
Could we have a word or two about the budget, the draft budget?
you can.
We can. We've got both experts here.
I'm sorry, Mr. Stiff.
Well, while they're coming to the podium, this is a draft budget. This is just the very beginning of the whole budget process, so we don't have a lot of information set in stone from the state yet. So this is just the very beginning of the entire process.
And I think, Ms. Morgan, you hit the nail on the head. I would encourage everyone that's listening to understand that, again, this is a draft budget. It's a great name for it because between now and May, it will probably change quite a bit, potentially. And so, really, what we discussed today were some of the things that came out of the governor's State of the Union address. And unfortunately, we weren't able to factor a good deal of that into this draft budget because we just got that information within the last 48 hours. And I know Jessica's been working on this budget for several weeks prior to now. But at the end of the day, I guess what we need everybody to understand is if they did listen to the governor's State of the Union, he implied that the base funding, which a lot of people look at for SEEK, was at the highest level ever, I think is the term he used, which was the 3981 amount of money per child that all districts will get. And it's our understanding that that's going to be the number. However, that is one input into the SEEK formula. There are many others. And so what we found out in the last 48 hours is that transportation funding in particular is slated to be reduced drastically in his budget. So I think what I would want folks to hear is if they've heard or if their understanding is that pre-12 education has been spared, I would argue it has not been spared. We are looking at potentially $2.5 to $3 million reduction loss in transportation funding. And just to remind folks, I know the board's aware, but those that are listening may not, transportation funding has never really been, hasn't been fully funded for a long time. And what I mean by that is this current year, before the reduction, we only received about 60% of the funding that the SEEK formula calls for in transportation. This reduction would probably take us down around 15 to 20% of what the state says they're supposed to provide for transportation funding. The other two parts of the governor's address that will have a big impact on us were PD funding, and then which is professional development funding, and then also textbook funding, which lately has been called instructional resources. You know, the old days of just giving you a textbook and putting you in a room with kids is we kind of don't do that anymore. So textbook funding you could now use in our current budget for Chromebooks. I'm sure Mr. Sutton can talk about the different ways that his department uses those funds to educate kids. But professional development and instructional resource, which the governor referred to as textbook funding, has been reduced to zero. So that would be a $500,000 reduction in state funding. Well, that funding is not part of the SEEK formula. It is funding that we traditionally get every year. So just in those three areas alone, we'd be looking at $3 to $3.5 million reduction in funding. Did you want to talk about some of the increased expenses that we are forecasting?
Like John said, SEEK base stayed the same, but some of the expenses are not. We've got a huge jump in CRS. The latest memorandum from the Kentucky Retirement stated it was going to go from 19.18 to 28.05. So all classified employees will see almost a 9% increase in their retirement, which for us in this budget was $2 million. And that was put in this budget because we felt confident that's already come out from KRS. Now, there could be some legislature come down that spreads that out, but as of right now, the letter we have says it's going to be 28.05 come July 1st of 18.
You're talking about a cost to us.
To you,
put
yes.
in, not a cost
Yes.
to.
Yes, on employer, yes.
And that's a good point, Mike. It's
Yes.
a cost to districts, also to other local governments.
Yes.
Right.
Not
County
to
government.
the employees
Yes,
themselves.
anybody that pays into county retirement, we'll see that. We still don't know what we're going to get hit on KTRS because the governor's pension has not been passed as well. We could see a 2% increase on new employees on top of the 3% we already pay. We put that in there, you know, it was roughly about 40,000. So we went ahead and put that in there just so we had a little bit already built in to cover KTRS depending on what the governor put in. Also increased expenses, typically we always see utility increases. We, at this point, you know, we had hoped we could give a raise, but that was prior to hearing what Governor Bevin spilled out in his statement this week. And with transportation costs coming in, you know, $2 million, it's going to be very difficult. And then per pupil, we kept it at the same as $125. But again, all of this will be have to look at before the tentative to see, you know, if we have to come up with additional money to fund these other cuts. We don't know property assessments at the time. And then you guys approved for the custodians to go to a level 4. This year they went from 3 to 3.5. Next year they'll go from 3.5 to the 4. So that was put in there to cover the cost so that we can maintain our custodians. So even though revenue seems to be decreasing or staying, you know, on the state level, our expenses unfortunately are increasing on the pensions and just day-to-day expenses on utilities and those type things.
So the next budget that we'll approve is
The tentative in
the
May.
tentative in May.
Yes.
So we're probably looking at making it some significant budget cuts in May to get that.
Depending
tentative
on,
budget.
I think they have until April to pass the biennium budget. So it's probably all gonna be dependent on how that time frame, rolls around. But, we'll probably have to come and make some pretty, quick decisions because we may not have enough, because we have to get the budget turned in May. So hopefully they'll get this passed beginning of April and give us some time to get back with you all and see where we're at.
And again, I think we're potentially still a little bit early in the budget process, and you all been around, you kind of know how this works. In a typical budget session, the governor puts out a budget, then there's some back and forth between the houses, and then some sort of compromise usually comes from that. Now, whether that'll happen this time or not, it's hard to say, but until we have some more definitive information from our state government, it's hard to know exactly how much cutting we have to do, and to what extent we're going to need to do. Of course, and I don't want to throw this out here now. I know it's way early, but also raising revenue is another way to offset decreased revenue that we may experience from the state. And I think it's kind of what the governor's asking boards of education to do, in my opinion. And he kind of said it in his address. He's asking local boards to come up with more transportation dollars. And I don't mean to throw that at your feet. I'm just echoing, in case you didn't hear the address, that came straight from the governor's mouth.
So how do we raise revenue? We raise property taxes is the only way we do it.
That is the board's way to significantly increase revenue for the district.
Basically, it's what we've said all along, that they expect us to take the hits as far as raising the taxes, and they sit up there and grin.
And then they dictate where it's going to.
Yeah, that's part of this deal now that we were talking about today, that he's dictating to us how we're going to have to spend the money because they're tracking us through the budget process.
It's my understanding that's what's being proposed.
Yeah.
The tobacco settlement money, did it go into the general fund of Kentucky and then they portion what they want to let us have out of it or not?
I don't know if you know the answer to that. I'm not aware of any tobacco settlement money that came directly
To
in any
education.
funding mechanism to education.
See, there's still money that's coming in off from basically the stop of selling cigarettes and the big fines that some of the companies paid. And I don't know, I was thinking we got like $2 million one time for that.
Right, I do not recall.
Not, since I've been here, I've not been aware of any payments strictly from tobacco.
Really?
In 12 years, yeah. It's all come through HCEC, through the state, or grants.
That is coming through. So that money went in, I guess, to the general fund of
Probably.
Kentucky, and they're sending it back as they see fit. But there was a lot of money out there that was supposed to get divvied back to the school systems.
Yeah, right.
Now, I think Carlina had some early scholarship money through early childhood and things that was through the tobacco funding process, and there was some small things like that that funded those type things.
So they're not cutting the early childhood money?
They did not touch preschool right now in this proposed.
That we are aware of.
Yeah.
But again, we are getting a lot of information secondhand. I don't know that anybody, I'm sure somebody has, but not anybody that we know that's gone all the way through the governor's budget and checked every little thing. Charlie brought up a good point about local control. There's other things in the governor's budget that we're finding out that could have additional financial implications for the board. One of which is paying for any overage in healthcare costs that the state might incur. So if the total healthcare bill for all state employees is $1 billion, that's what they budgeted at the state level, and it costs $1.1 billion. It's my understanding from what I've read today that additional $100 million will be sent back out in some form or fashion to entities that participate in that, and that will be an additional cost. So it's hard to know, it's hard to budget that number if it's not something we have any history with. So.
Back on the county retirement, how much are employees paying on that now?
5%.
Yeah, 5.
Is it 5%?
I think it's 5%. They pay 5% in retirement, 6.2% into Social Security.
Yeah.
So
They have
how,
taxes.
is that gonna increase for employees?
No, just employers as of now.
Just employers, okay, so they're not seeing any. What about health insurance? Is the cost to employees going up?
It typically goes up a little bit every
Yeah.
year. If we're talking about health insurance that the employee's actually using in this fiscal year,
Uh-huh.
there's really two costs that employees are currently paying in our system. One is for healthcare they're actually using, and one is for healthcare when they retire. So, and that's not something we've always done. Back, 10 years ago, folks didn't pay for healthcare while they're working for when they retire. So they're actually paying for both now.
That was that 3% increase we gradually took every year.
But healthcare costs, the premiums that most people are associated with paying, our employees pay that as well, and they typically go up a little bit every year.
So they're not getting a raise and their insurance is going up, so they're going backwards, in other words.
Some people would argue that.
Forever.
There was, my understanding, there was like, the governor wanted to cut like 70 Medicaid programs. Will that affect the nursing programs that were?
Medicaid's on a federal level.
He did mention Medicaid in his address about being a model for the state.
Yeah.
I don't know how that will affect our Medicaid reimbursement directly. The 70 programs I think he was talking about were state programs. I don't know that they were all associated with Medicaid. Some of the 70 was the professional development we talked about, the instructional resource money we talked about. There were a host of others. I don't know if anybody else.
But don't.
I wasn't as familiar with some of the other programs.
Our Medicaid comes from federal money.
All of it, so.
Yeah,
Any-
where we reimburse that. That's
We're
where you hear Trump talk about Medicaid and
Okay.
Medicaid, that.
So we're reimbursed from the student nursing, or not the student nursing, but the nursing program that we have in each school for student care.
As
Yes.
far as we
It's paid
know,
out of the federal side only, no state money comes in on that?
it may be a federal can't even talk.
Pass-through.
Pass-through, thank you, flow-through, but as far as we know, we haven't read anything
Yeah.
that would be reduced. But that, to Jessica's point, that would probably be reduced more on the federal end than I think it would be on the state. So if I had to make a summary statement, it would be this, is what I want people to hear. I know it's a lot to take in and it's a lot to think about. When you hear that K-12 funding's been at the same level as the year we're currently in, I would argue that's not true, and significantly not true. So we are experiencing reductions.
Did you figure out how many years we've been at the same level?
I believe it's been 3981 since 2015, I believe. So for the past 4 years, and then the next 2 years into the biennium. So that per pupil base has been flat for a while. So definitely want to drive that point home, that our revenue is decreasing and our expenses are increasing in a very significant and different way than we've ever experienced before.
And it's not just us, we have felt this coming for a while across all the districts are feeling it. If you read KSB headlines, it's everybody present their draft budget. It's unfortunately not very helpful.
Any other questions?
No, not asking any more questions about that either.
Lady,
Thank you.
thank you. And we do have the administrative cost of
Yes.
all the counties in our package tonight for some nice bedtime reading or whatever. And-
Yes, I'll be sharing that afterwards, so.
But, all right, any other, we're approving Lakewood Elementary 5th grade to go to Cumberland Falls in April, commercial carrier. Central Hardin JROTC to Dayton Ohio. EC3 Vex Robotics to Council Bluffs, Iowa. John Hardin ROTC to Camp Perry, Ohio. And then monthly financial reports, orders of the treasurer, School activity fund balance, approval of the draft budget again, and BG5 North Middle School project, and BG1 for the East Hardin Middle School project. That's where we're making a step forward to advise or get permission from the state to start looking harder at this project, or to get it started. Also, a BG1 for Lincoln Trail Elementary. We are actively looking for a site for each one of them still. And Brandenburg Telecom 10-year service contract we talked about earlier, and school-wide fundraisers.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any other discussion? Not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we're down to action items, and nothing there.
No, sir.
New business? No new business. Superintendent's report.
So, just first off, if you have an opportunity to go to the PAC, I believe there's a show, Peter and the Starcatcher tonight. Buy one ticket, get one free, and that begins at 7 o'clock this evening. So if you hightail it out of here,
go.
you can make the show. We'll make that our goal. But also, along with that, this is Board Appreciation Month. You'll notice a letter in the editor, I believe, today, thanking our board members. And one of the things that the public sees is this hour that we record on TV. What you don't see are the multiple hours behind the scenes that these board members put in. Reading emails from the folks who have concerns or positive accolades, but also doing different things such as attending noon board meetings. And Ms. Sharon just mentioned that she was reading Governor Scholars, which took applications multiple hours. So please realize what you're seeing here on camera does not represent the numerous hours they spend taking care of the district and honestly your future as citizens of Hardin County. So I want to extend my appreciation. You can see the multiple principals who brave the weather outside, which I'm not sure, I was hoping it would stay 35, but that did not happen. So, but we do want to extend our appreciation to our board members. We do have a gift for each one of you back here. We'll let you open that as we adjourn. But when you have the opportunity, please take the opportunity to look up their email addresses and send them a personal note of appreciation for all their hard work and dedication. So I certainly appreciate them. One of the things as you look at the board is the diversity that we have up here as far as the backgrounds. And this helps us out tremendously. You have former teachers who worked in Hardin County schools. You have a person who works in construction, a person who works for the water management, and we added a lawyer this year as well. So all of those backgrounds really make us the greatness, but above all is the commitments they read before each board meeting to always put students first. And I feel confident that that they do that as a board. So thank each of you for doing that.
Could I say a word about those Governor Scholars applications?
You can.
There were 46 of them. And I know beyond a doubt there are at least 46 outstanding young people in the Hardin County schools. I was so impressed by those applications. And every time I got tired and decided I wasn't going to read it all, I'd think, no, these kids are, this is really important to these young people. And, but the one thing that I saw that was common in all of these was these young people are interested in helping others achieve their goals and be successful. So we're very fortunate to live in a county that we have such quality young people in our schools. And I know there are more than just these 46. They just didn't take the hours and hours that it must have taken them to complete these applications. And boy, I'm glad I don't have to choose, because I would send them all on to Governor's Scholars. So we have great kids.
Absolutely.
Great
It's a
kids.
great program.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Life-changing for those students.
Yes,
so.
absolutely. Absolutely.
My daughter was one.
See? Proof.
Very good.
Were you a Governor's Scholar? Well, bless your heart. They didn't have that program when I was in school.
They barely started it when I was.
100 years ago.
I was in conservation club.
All right, executive session. I don't think we're gonna have an executive session, but we're gonna have a student hearing.
Student hearing, yes, sir,
And,
and it's going to be closed.
It's gonna be close, so I need to read that they have a right to be represented by an attorney on their behalf if they would like, have a right to question any witness presented by the administration, and may call any witness that they choose to testify on their behalf. You may present evidence to the board that will explain the circumstances of your case, but it's not required that you testify before the board. Anything that you say may and will be used by the board to make a decision regarding this case. So they've chosen a closed session, and
Yes.
and we will go into closed session for this student hearing. And I would say that no other action will be taken by
Correct.
the board tonight. So anyone that would like to go on home, it'll be fine. We'll be there a little while. We don't know how long, but
We do have cake and punch in appreciation of the board, so we ask everybody to stay and enjoy that, and then we will go on into closed session, but we'll let you have some cake and punch as well.
all right. Appreciate y'all coming out. And when Terry mentioned the principals a while ago, I always thought, said that the principals that show up all the time, it's easier to ask for something because we see you more frequently.
Okay.
And the motion to go into closed session.
I move we go into executive session for the purpose of conducting a student hearing.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to go into executive session for the purpose of a student hearing. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
The Hardin County School Board January Board Meeting Consent Agenda. Instructional Services. Approval of a modified schedule for a student with a disability. Student Services. Approval for the Lakewood Elementary 5th grade to travel to Cumberland Falls from April 18th, 19th, 2018 via commercial carrier. Approval for the Central Hardin High School JROTC to travel to Dayton, Ohio from March 16th, 17th, 2018 via commercial carrier. Approval for the EC3 VEX Robotics team to travel to Council Bluffs, Iowa from April 5th through 8th, 2018 via commercial carrier. Approval for the John Hardin High School JROTC Air Rifle team to travel to Camp Perry, Ohio, February 15th, 18th, 2018 via commercial carrier. Financial Services. Receive the monthly financial reports. Approval of the orders of the treasurer. Receive the school activity fund balance report. Approval of the draft budget for FY 2019. Approval of BG5 for the North Middle School project. Approval of revised BG1 for the East Hardin Middle School project. Approval of BG1 for the Lincoln Trail Elementary project. Approval of the proposal from Brandenburg Telecom for a 10-year service contract for a fiber optic wide area network beginning July 1, 2018. Approval of school-wide fundraisers. Human Resources. Certified personnel actions. Classified personnel actions. Approval of revisions to policy 3.1332 and 3.2332. Miscellaneous items. Receive the school board's SBDM minutes. Receive the PAC information. Approval of the minutes from the December 21st, 2017 regular lunch meeting. Approval of the minutes from the December 21st, 2017 regular evening meeting. Board calendar, February 15th, 11:30 a.m. Regular lunch board meeting, Central Hardin High School. February 15th, 6 p.m. Regular evening board meeting, Hardin County Schools Performing Arts Center.